Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're doing a deck profile for Dracoslayer. I'm planning to make this the ultimate guide, something you can always refer to. I'm going to future-proof it with tech. All you need to know, Dracoslayer is super popular right now. I want to share this video to basically be like a stepping stone for you to maybe get into Dracoslayer, or if you're interested in the deck and you're playing it already, learning how to play it. Real quick though guys, you can hit the like button, subscribe and all that good stuff. It'll help that YouTube algorithm find us and let people see this video. Let's get straight into it. Okay guys, so starting off the monster lineup, we're going to start with Majesty Pegasus, the Dracoslayer. This is arguably the most important card of the deck. You have to understand how this card works and all its effects. So on summon, can search, if it's Pendulum summoned or spell summoned by Dracoslayer, searches a field spell, a generic field spell, which is your Necro Valley, your Secret Village, Sky Iris, but also in some cases the new field spell Dragonic Pendulum. And you have to discard a card after, but that's fine because you have a lot of good resource management. And what's really special about this card is its low scale. Now, when you play Dracoslayer, when you combo off, you realize when you're playing it that you need a low scale more than you think. Having that scale 2 is so important. We are also running 2 copies of Magister Raccoon Bubunku, so this card is essentially 2 more copies of it. Can't be targeted by card effects, so when you summon it and try to search, if they imperm, you get to find out what they have in their hand, which is really nice. And on special summon can also search for a Magispector, which is really nice. Arguably the second best Dracoslayer is Dynamite Power Load. It can special summon a Dracoslayer in the other scale, so it lets you get into the Beyond the Pendulum without even special summoning in some cases, which is really strong. So that's why Dynamite Power Load is really good. And then when tributed, let's say to summon your Fusion Ignister, it can add a Dracoslayer except him from your extra deck to your hand, which is really busted because that synergizes with Ignister. So it's really cool. And also, it's a water type. So when you go into Abyss Dweller in the combo, you know your Abyss Dweller is going to be boosted. It's going to be 2200, which can't be outed by some Terranort monsters, which is really cool. Next, we're running Ignis Phoenix, the Dracoslayer. This guy is who you bring out with your Ignister. You're probably seeing a trend here how each of the mini Dracoslayers correspond with their synchro or their extra deck monster. So if you special summon him with Ignister, then you pop him with Ignister to bounce a card. You're going to trigger himself to special summon a Dracoslayer from the deck. Treat as a tuner. So I guess the crazy thing about this card is obviously it's treated as a tuner, gets you into Ignister really easily, but also it can bring out the Majesty Pegasus, which is the scariest card in the deck because it searches a generic field spell. The other thing about this card is if you are playing the Masterpiece Negation line, which is something I've been testing for quite a while. I'm still yet to refine it, but I will include in this video, by the way. It can shuffle a Pendulum Monster from the extra deck into the main deck, which is really nice. Add some recursion to add a non-Pendulum Dracoslayer from your deck to hand. So to keep that in mind as well, it might come up. So 7 does come awkward sometimes if you see too much of him, but I still think it's great. And one card that enables Ignis Phoenix is our Luster Pendulum, the Dracoslayer. You can pop your other scale, doesn't have to be a Dracoslayer, and add a copy to hand. If you pop Ignis, he special summons, like we mentioned before. Also, if you pop the Purple Poison Magician, which comes up more than you think, when it's pops a card on the field, and it's not once per turn. So you can do a lot of crazy stuff with that card. You can break boards before you even play the game, and is why I really enjoy using this card. We move on to Master Pendulum. We run it for the name. It's a scale 3. That's another really important reason why we run it. We really need low scales in this deck to perform well. So that's why we are playing this card. You run 2 because you can pop it with your Luster Pendulum, which sometimes comes up but doesn't come up all the time. Next up is Odd-Eyes Revolution Dragon. This card is not on once per turn. Let's just get that out the way.
What did you just say?
And that's why it's so busted. Pay 500 life points to discard it from your hand. Search any Dragon Pendulum monster. So anything you're missing, you can search it, which is really good. But its main effect, which is why we run it, which is why we play 3 of it, and why we have a card to search it, it can target a Dragon Synchro Exceeder Fusion, I believe, in the graveyard, pop itself, and then special summon that monster. Because Ignister Prominence is not on once per turn, you can loop that effect non-stop, including the bouncing effect and including the special summon effect. You have to play this card. It enables crazy, I guess, broken potential that this deck is known for. We're running 1 card to search it, which is the Skullcrab Joker. So in my own playtesting, I've kind of realized that I don't need Skullcrab Joker as much. So I'm only running 1 copy. It's kind of a brick because it can only trigger when normal summon, not special summon, like the Bubunku. So just keep that in mind. But it is really nice. You can search the Harmonizing Magician, which is really clutch sometimes. You know, maybe you don't need any other search like the Odd-Eyes Revolution Dragon. You just search the Harmonizing Magician. Next up is the Astrograph Sorcerer. So as we mentioned with Odd-Eyes Revolution Dragon, remember, it will pop itself to trigger its effect. When a monster is popped, you can special Astrograph, add a copy of that card from your deck to hand. And when you combo that with Odd-Eyes Revolution Dragon, it is just beyond broken because you're able to trigger Odd-Eyes twice. And that's excluding, you know, maybe other copies you have. Maybe there's a way to search it. It's really broken. It's limited, and I can clearly see why. Next, we are running the Magician package. That's 3 Harmonizing Magician and 2 Purple Poison Magician. These cards are great. I don't think they're a must. I've seen some builds where you don't run it. But the reason why I like these cards is they're that that tuner, non-tuner you need sometimes for Ignister. But also, you know, more importantly is that body on the field, and then Purple Poison having that crazy utility. When harmonizing is Pendulum Sound from the hand, it can special Purple Poison from the deck. So that's why we run 2 copies of it. We also run 2 copies because of the Luster Pendulum we mentioned before. The only issue with harmonizing, it's got quite a few drawbacks. The Magician it brings out, if it's used as material, it gets banished. But that's why we use it as a rank material for the Magister Paladin. So when it goes grave instead of being banished, which is really nice. Next, we're running some interesting one-offs. So I've gone through so many versions of this deck. The player who got top 16 in, I think it was YCS Pasadena, or maybe it was YCS Dortmund. Yeah, so he did a top 16. He made Necro Valley. He played a lot of interesting stuff. He played the Heretic Seal, which is a version I have. I've been testing it. What I realized is what I'm more comfortable with is playing the Scythe version, where you end on Harbinger and things like that. The Eccentric is great. This is a new edition. So I've always had this card. I was always taking my Scareclaw video in my Scareclaw decks. It's the Mystic Mine out. You can search on the end phase with Magister Paladin. And when you're done with your combo, you really don't need much else. So you're just, you know, you're more than happy to search this card, which can, you know, get rid of the Sulliat, get rid of the Crime, get rid of, again, Mystic Mine. So there we go. There's Eccentric. And then some cards to basically be a meta check is the Bestial Magnamut and the Bestial Jerusalem. I was running the Saronir, but I wanted to make the deck 40 cards, so I took the Saronir out. You can run whatever bestial package you think is right for you. Maybe your locals has a lot of tournament, so definitely run more if you can. But I'm happy running this as a standalone, as a standard. They're great as a extender for Beyond the Pendulum because it needs 2 monsters, including a Pendulum effect monster. So, you know, this is the perfect bridge to get there. Yeah, I think the bestial guys are amazing. And more importantly, Magnamut. Magnamut can search the Luster Pendulum, Master Pendulum. It can search the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, which is disgusting. So let's say it's the opponent's turn. They're playing the second turn out. You summon the Magnamut, you search Odd Eyes, goes back to your turn. Maybe they've cleared your board. Maybe they didn't OTK you. Activate Odd Eyes, bring back the Ignister, and there we go. We're going to win the game. So that's why Magnamut is really, really important. And just as I'm saying this, I'm thinking I should probably just run 3 as well, not 2. And the last card, I think this card is great in Pendulum because when we are going second, we have a lot of trouble breaking boards. Pendulums are known to need all their resources, need all their scales, but if they can't do their scale stuff, then they're gonna have trouble. So Fenrir is great to establish a more of a neutral board for us to combo off on. So Fenrir is great, Special Summon itself, it's also an extender for Beyond the Pendulum, which is great. Adds a discard fodder for Majesty Pegasus to discard after such the field spell. And then yeah, it can break boards. It's 2400. It's amazing. I'm so glad I managed to pull my second one now, which is great. Time to move on to the spells. There's only a few of them, but they're mainly consistency cards to help us reach our main deck monsters. Let's get into it. For the spell lineup, I'm running Sky Iris, Reinforcement of the Army, and Dynamist Charge. So a lot of people have started to realize that the Dynamist Charge is really powerful, being able to search the Dynamite Power Load, which is one of your more strong Dracoslayer monsters because it enables Majesty Pegasus's field spell search, but also that body for Beyond the Pendulum. And it's a scale 6, which is really nice in the deck. While Ignis is not as popular, some people think it's not as great, I still think it warrants having a searcher for it. It's still an amazing card. Being able to bring out a Dracoslayer from the deck as a tuner is, I don't think it's something you should ignore. You can ignore. So that's why I'm running Reinforcement of the Army. You need to have this card if you're playing Dracoslayer. If you want to play any Pendulum deck, because you can search Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, which loops your Ignister Prominence. And it's really important to also pop your scales to free them up. So this is one of the most important cards of the deck. And mainly 99% of the time, what you'll search with Majesty Pegasus, if you're not running like a Necro Valley. Like I mentioned before, Fenrir and Triple Tactics are going to try to do the same job, where we're getting disrupted by monster effects. Maybe there's a Nibiru, a Bestial, an Ash Blossom. Or if you're going second and you're trying to break a board, Tactics is amazing. Again, using that opponent's monster as a link fodder for Beyond the Pendulum is really strong, but also drawing 2 cards is just as nice. Alternatively, you could rip a card out if you think they're playing Nibiru, so that's really key. And then last 2 cards, Pot of Desires. So in a deck where you're running less one-offs, I think this card is a must. You have to play Pot of Desires. Obviously, Banishing Intent is not ideal, but because everything's a 3-off, statistically, it actually makes a lot of sense to play Desires. So that's why it's here. And that's been the main deck. We're going to talk about the extra deck now and move on to there. Before we move on to the extra deck, I really want to shout out some honorable mentions that I think are engines or just tech you could run in a Dracoslayer / Pendulum deck. There's a lot of things you can run which will probably win you the game. So I want to include those and talk about those now. Okay, so one engine I really want to discuss is the Dragonic Pendulum Masterpiece, the true Dracoslayer engine. So what this does is he's an Omni Negate. In order to summon him, you must tribute a Dracoslayer and a Draco Overlord, and that is why we have the Draco Face-Off to special Overlord from the deck, which is limited. If it was unlimited, I think this engine would see a lot more play. I like the fact we can have an Omni Negate on the field sometimes before the 5th summon. And then Draco Overlord is the card you need, it's literally just here, just so you can summon Masterpiece, which sounds really funny to say. In the Duelist Alliance, being able to search the Dragonic Pendulum, because it says Pendulum in its name, it can also search the Luster Pendulum, which is really strong. So that's why we would run the Duelist Alliance. And this is a package I want to show off because I don't think it's been explored enough to just be ignored. I think it definitely warrants some sort of, exploration. But this might be a baseline for you to mess around with, to tinker with. This card has so much going for it. Being able to pop a card when a Dracoslayer monster activates its effect, so a Dragon Dracoslayer monster activates its effect, is, I think, really underrated. The only issue I'm finding with is that there's no quick effect one, so you can't really activate the opponent's turn, which kind of sucks. And being able to press on a Dracoslayer from the deck is super strong. The next engine I want to talk about is the Amorphage Sloth and the Hieratic Seal engine. So this coupled with, maybe the Baron engine with Odd Eyes, Perform Power, Synchron, and Monkey Board. I think Sloth is a really broken floodgate, and when you can protect it with Ignister, because Ignister protects your pendulums by card effect and battle, it makes it so this 0 attack, 0 defense monster can't even be outed. You have the bounce from Hieratic Seal. Because the Luster and the Master Pendulum are all dragons and the extra deck monsters, he's really easy to go into. So this might be an engine you want to play. This card did also get reprinted, so keep that in mind. Sloth is fairly cheap as well. So if you're playing Dracoslayer and you want a build to try, I highly recommend this one. It's been a lot of fun. I've been testing it online, I've been testing it in real life, and I think it's really, really good. There's less steps involved, whereas the Scythe combo definitely takes more steps. So this one is definitely more efficient. Finally, the last engine, which I've been really excited to shout this one out. We finally got Perform Power, I believe his name is Odd Eyes. So that card is what enables the Omni Negate before the 5th summon in a much more easy way than summoning the Masterpiece, which is the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, the Perform Power Odd Eyes Dissolver, the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Now it sounds like I'm just naming a lot of bricks, but it really isn't. It's a really efficient engine. It's only 3 cards, and you can even run more than 1 Seer, which just goes to show how powerful that card is by itself, ending that small engine on a Omni Negate, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So there we go. Also, this is definitely going to be what I'm playing as soon as I get my Seers, as soon as my Vortex Dragon comes in the mail. I think this is a really cool way to play Dracoslayer and saying no to Nibiru, because traditionally Nibiru is the one card that essentially just outs your board every single time. So if you're able to out Nibiru, how on earth are they actually going to stop you? So that's been all the mini engines I want to talk about. Hopefully one or two of them were interesting for you, and you might want to check those out in your own time. I definitely recommend trying the Amorphage Sloth or the Scythe version that I'm continuing to show in this deck profile. I think they're the most efficient ones, most strongest. The Masterpiece one is more of a fun one to try, but when you get the Omni Negate set up, it's really strong, it's really hard to take out. So yeah, let's move on to the extra deck now. I'm playing 2 Beyond the Pendulum because you need to be able to resolve this card. If one gets negated, the other one can come out, and it's not once per turn, so you can do the whole thing again, and basically as if your opponent didn't do anything. So that's really strong. The next card we're running is the IP Masquerena as your other Link 2 monster. I think IP in a deck that summons a lot of bodies is a must, because you're able to play on your opponent's turn the Nightmare Unicorn, the Appaloosa. There's a lot of stuff you could play. You could even try the At Arrival Cyrus Ignister, which is something I teched very early on, which you might have seen in my original deck profile. As mentioned, I am playing the Scythe build, which is the build I personally just am more comfortable playing. So that's why Dagda is here. I think Dagda is great, being able to set the Scythe. Next card we're running is Celine to basically fresh summon a Magician from the graveyard. If you saw my combo video, I'll link that on the screen. What you do in the combo is you detach Purple Poison when Pendulum Summoning Harmonizing, which brings it out. When it's detached, it goes Grave. So that means Celine can now special summon it. We have Access Code Talker and the Appaloosa here. So these are cards that Celine bridges into very, very easily, and that's why we run these 2. Access Code is your finisher. Some other cards we're running is the Nightmare Unicorn, which IP mostly bridges into, and the World Dragon Zealantis. Zealantis, of course, resets every monster on the board, because the Dragon Dracoslayers, the extra deck ones, are not once per turn. They're like soft once per turn. You can loop them again because they're a new copy on the field. Move on to some Exceed monsters now. So we're running the Abyss Dweller and the Baguska. So Baguska is your check to Floowandereeze. If you want to play a more competitive version, you need it in this meta. It's just what checks Floowandereeze. Abyss Dweller will check the tournament boards and should secure you the game. Some other Exceeds are running is the Magister Paladin, of course, and the Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy.
What did you just say?
That is the craziest name in the world. This card is your spell negate, and what you end up with, because in the Sloth version you leave the Ignister in the field, whereas in this version you use it with the Ignister as a rank 8 for this guy. And he's really strong because he can take out most popular spells in the game. I'm thinking about Perla Rhino, Instant Fusion, Branded Fusion. There's a lot of cool cards. And also, if you saw my YouTube Shorts video as well, put that up on the screen. He can protect Appaloosa from dying by battle, which is really clutch because your Appaloosa won't be too strong. So it's kind of a cheap way of summoning a weak Appaloosa. but still being able to use it to its max potential. Lastly, we're running the Entis and the Ignister. So I've already talked about Ignister. What you can do is special summon a Dracoslayer from hand or graveyard, and then Entis, of course, in this combo, in this Dagda Scythe combo, we hard make Entis thanks to Ignister, thanks to Oda's Revolution Dragon. Speaking of Entis, if you want to see the full combo video or just want to learn how this combo works, I've got it as a video on my channel. You can check it out. I'll put it up on the screen. It's a really powerful one, and I think it's really hard to stop once the engine gets going. Two Ignister Prominences. This is the coolest card in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm so glad this card is relevant once again. Being able to express on any Dracoslayer from the deck is super powerful. Lets you extend like crazy into Link monsters. Lets you extend into Exceed monsters. But ultimately as well, being a great going second card, not being a hard once per turn, spinning anything into the deck, non-targeting, non-destruction. It can out Dragoons, which is really funny. Okay, you've seen me talk about the extra deck. You've seen me talk about some tech cards and some of the main deck cards. We're going to move on to the side deck. Might not be relevant to your locals, to your regionals, but I think this is a really, really good baseline, and hopefully you can learn something from this. So let's get to it. First up on the side deck is the Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. So because of time rules, because of how Dracoslayer just naturally plays, you need to be able to have an out to basically the time rules because they're not that favorable right now. You can also bring it back with Oda's Revolution Dragon, making this card yeah, a really clutch card. Just very quickly, while we're talking about time rules, I'm also going to throw in the 3 Spooky Dogwood because I think Dogwood is a must in this format. This deck loses quite badly to Dogwood. I've experienced that firsthand, and I think a lot of other decks also do in the meta. All you have to do is chain it to a fusion summon or a special summon and you're good to go. So yeah, Dogwood is basically the TCG Maxi. If you want to succeed, if you want to do well in tournaments, I think you should play this card. I think Flunder's running crazy because they check tournament quite easily, or they're just the other option when you don't want to play tournament. So Zombie Ward is great to search, and when you resolve it, Flunder can't do anything. The guy who played top 16 mained Necro Valley throughout the whole tournament and he got top 16, so you know, hats off to him. That just goes to show how strong the deck is, how strong the card is, and be able to search at Majesty Pegasus is actually pretty broken. Secret Village is a card you can obviously tech out. I don't think it's as popular, as necessary. You can take this out for cards like Mystic Mine and other side deck cards, but I thought I'd mention it here because it does synergize really well with the Selene and other spellcasters. You know, you have your Sky Iris, you have your Ignister. There's a lot of ways to pop Ariadne, and then when it's popped, reveals 3 counter traps in the deck, and then your opponent chooses one to basically add to your hand. But because they're all judgment, there is no need to, you know, mess around here. And when you have that insurance on the board, it means you can't even get Dark Riddle no more, which is really powerful. Dracoslayer can play really well under Dimension Shifter, which I recently learned. So that's why I'm including it here. Again, it's that meta check. You know, if you're playing locals, you're going to expect tournaments to happen. So you need a card to out them, to deal with them. 3 Dark Riddle no mores to basically just say no to other people's boards if they make anything crazy. 3 Evenly Matched, because I think this is the scariest card right now inside decks. Yes, it loses to Tournament's Crime, but you just have to find a way to deal with that first before you resolve Evenly Matched. So you might have noticed I've already gone over my 15 side deck, and there's a reason for that. Again, you know, the side deck is very flexible. It might be different for you. You might find other things are more valuable, more important. So definitely run those if you think you should. You know, Anti-Spell is obviously a OTK and FTK against Pendulum. So having some sort of check is, I think, just a smart decision. At the same time, Anti-Spell is just not seen that much right now. That's been me talking about Dracoslayers. Hopefully this guide is able to maybe inspire you or just share some knowledge about the deck. If you want to watch any more content about Dracoslayer, I've got those videos up on my channel. You can definitely go watch those. If you want to see any other content related to Dracoslayer, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.